chase validation, recognition, and approval, the Sigma male detaches himself from the game altogether. This detachment doesn't make him invisible. In fact, it makes him more magnetic. People are naturally intrigued by what they can't control or fully understand, and the Sigma embodies that paradox. He doesn't chase respect, but respect follows him. He doesn't demand attention, yet attention gravitates toward his stillness. This is why ordinary men often envy him, not because he's louder, richer, or more dominant, but because he refuses to need what they worship. Human social structures, both in history and psychology, are built on hierarchies. From tribes to corporations, dominance and submission dictate much of human interaction. The alpha thrives by leading and competing. The beta follows through cooperation, and the omega often withdraws in resignation. But the Sigma is different. He exists outside that chain. He doesn't seek to dominate nor to submit. He operates independently, creating his own systems and pathways. In sociological terms, this positions him as a lone wolf, someone who can function within a group if necessary, but doesn't depend on it for his identity or power. And in a world where conformity is the norm, genuine independence becomes the rarest and most envied form of strength. What makes the Sigma especially compelling is not rebellion for rebellion's sake, but quiet mastery. He thrives on self-discipline, critical thinking, and inner focus. Research in psychology shows that people with high levels of self-reliance often outperform peers in creative problem-solving because they're less influenced by groupthink. That's the Sigma advantage. He doesn't blindly follow trends, he questions them. He doesn't waste energy proving himself, he invests it in becoming himself. This quiet refusal to play society's games is why others both admire and resent him. So this isn't about glorifying the Sigma, it's about revealing the mindset that sets him apart. To live like a Sigma is to reject the pre-written scripts and carve your own. And in a world obsessed with noise, his silence becomes the loudest roar. Habit 1. Strategic detachment. Ordinary men often find themselves caught in a relentless cycle of comparison, measuring their worth against the achievements, possessions, and social status of others. It's a subtle form of captivity. The more they look around, the smaller they feel, and the more effort they expend trying to fit into a system that dictates success according to someone else's rules. The Sigma male, however, has mastered the art of detachment. He doesn't conform to societal expectations or seek validation from peers, bosses, or social media metrics. Instead, he evaluates life on his own terms, pursuing personal growth, meaningful experiences, and independence rather than recognition. This ability to disengage from external pressures is not mere laziness or apathy. It's strategic freedom. Psychologists have long noted that chronic comparison can trigger anxiety and reduce life satisfaction, and the Sigma's detachment acts as a natural shield against these psychological traps. By stepping away from the race for approval, he maintains mental clarity and emotional equilibrium, giving him a unique form of power that ordinary men envy. Interestingly, this doesn't mean he rejects society entirely. Rather, he participates selectively, engaging in systems and communities only when they align with his principles or serve his long-term goals. This selective engagement allows him to conserve energy and focus on what truly matters, avoiding the exhaustion that comes from trying to keep up with everyone else. His detachment also fosters creativity and independent thinking, as he isn't constrained by popular opinion or trends. Historical examples of individuals who demonstrated this Sigma-like detachment include artists, inventors, and thinkers who prioritized vision over approval, such as Nikola Tesla or Emily Dickinson, who pursued their work quietly, often isolated, yet left an impact that transcended conventional measures of success. The Sigma's freedom from societal comparison also gives him an aura of mystery, confidence, and authenticity, qualities that draw others to him, often unknowingly. In essence, his detachment is both a shield and a weapon. It protects him from the pitfalls of constant validation seeking while positioning him to act decisively, creatively, and autonomously. Ordinary men, chained by their need for approval, may never fully grasp this quiet but formidable power, which makes the Sigma male a figure of silent admiration and subtle influence in any environment. Habit 2. Moving unnoticed. The Sigma male's mastery of invisibility is less about physical disappearance and more about social and psychological presence, or the strategic lack thereof. Unlike the average man who seeks validation and thrives on constant attention, the Sigma has learned the power of subtlety. He knows when to blend in with the crowd, adopting the rhythm of his surroundings without drawing unnecessary eyes or energy. This ability to withdraw is not a sign of weakness or fear, but a calculated maneuver, allowing him to observe, analyze, and understand the dynamics around him without interference. Psychologists studying social behavior often note that individuals who can step back and disengage from social pressures gain a distinct advantage in decision-making, as they are less likely to be swayed by groupthink or emotional manipulation. The Sigma's unpredictability is a natural extension of this skill. People around him can never fully anticipate his moves, which creates an aura of intrigue and subtle authority. This unpredictability is not chaotic, but deliberate, rooted in careful observation and timing. By appearing only when it serves a purpose, the Sigma exerts a quiet control over his environment. He influences outcomes not by force, but by strategic presence. Interestingly, this aligns with behavioral studies that highlight how human attention is disproportionately captured by those who are inconsistent or selectively visible, as our brains are wired to seek patterns and explanations. The Sigma leverages this cognitive tendency to his advantage, maintaining an enigmatic profile that encourages curiosity, respect, and sometimes envy. Moreover, his invisibility allows him to navigate social hierarchies without being trapped in conventional roles or expectations, giving him freedom that most people rarely experience. In practice, this means he can enter a room unnoticed, assess the dynamics, and choose exactly when and how to engage, maximizing influence without confrontation. Over time, this behavior fosters a reputation not just for intelligence or skill, but for a kind of almost mystical awareness of timing, space, and human nature. It's a subtle, often misunderstood form of power, one that does not demand attention but quietly commands it, making others wonder and sometimes even fear how he consistently seems to be one step ahead. Through invisibility, the Sigma male exemplifies the art of selective engagement, turning presence and absence into strategic tools for personal and social mastery. Habit 3, self-reliance. The Sigma male's strength is not borrowed, it is meticulously crafted. Unlike those who rely on external support or safety nets, he cultivates a self-reliance that permeates every aspect of his life, from finances to problem solving. This is not simply about having money or intelligence. It is a disciplined approach to developing the skills and resilience necessary to navigate the world independently. For instance, when it comes to finances, the Sigma doesn't just save or invest blindly. He learns the mechanics of wealth creation, understanding investments, passive income streams, and resource management in a way that allows him to operate without fear of sudden setbacks. In problem solving, he studies patterns, anticipates challenges, and often solves issues before they even arise, turning obstacles into opportunities for growth. This independence makes him untouchable because his stability and power do not rely on anyone else. Ordinary men, by contrast, often depend on networks, social validation, or established systems to maintain their position. This dependency, while seemingly convenient, makes them vulnerable to change, manipulation, and failure. The Sigma's self-built foundation is a fortress. He is aware that real power stems not from influence over others, but from mastery over oneself. Historically, many figures admired for their ingenuity and resilience, from inventors like Nikola Tesla to explorers like Ernest Shackleton, embodied this principle. They relied on skill, preparation, and ingenuity rather than external assistance. In modern life, this translates into a mindset of continuous improvement, learning new skills, adapting to challenges, and making calculated decisions that reinforce independence. It also involves emotional resilience. The Sigma doesn't seek validation from social circles or external authorities, but builds confidence from competence and personal achievement. Ordinary men may envy this because it is rare, requiring patience, discipline, and the willingness to endure periods of isolation or struggle. The Sigma's strength is not flashy or performative, yet it is undeniable. By owning his foundation, he ensures that no circumstance, person, or crisis can destabilize him. He is not only prepared for life's uncertainties, but thrives in them, embodying a level of freedom and self-determination that others can only aspire to. In essence, the Sigma male demonstrates that true power is internal, cultivated through persistent effort, unwavering focus, and a refusal to outsource the most important aspects of his life. Habit 4. Monastic focus. In a world buzzing with notifications, endless scrolling, and constant interruptions, the Sigma male's focus stands out as almost mythical. While most people allow their attention to drift from one fleeting interest to another, the Sigma operates like a precision instrument. When he sets his mind on a goal, whether it's mastering a complex skill, diving deep into a field of study, or building a business from scratch, he commits completely, often to the point of obsession. Neuroscience shows that this kind of deep focus, sometimes called flow, allows the brain to work at peak efficiency, making learning faster, problem-solving sharper, and creativity more potent. Ordinary men, by contrast, tend to divide their attention across countless distractions, which research has linked to decreased productivity and cognitive fatigue. What makes the Sigma's approach even more enviable is not just the intensity, but the consistency. He doesn't rely on fleeting bursts of motivation. He cultivates discipline, understanding that sustained effort over time compounds into results that others can only dream of. This is why Sigmas often achieve mastery in areas where others plateau, whether in intellectual pursuits, entrepreneurship, or artistic endeavors. Their focus is not rigid or robotic, it is strategic. The Sigma chooses his mission carefully, understanding which objectives align with his long-term vision, and ruthlessly ignores the noise that tempts others into wasted effort. Psychologists note that this type of selective attention is a hallmark of high-performing individuals, allowing them to filter out distractions and maintain clarity even under pressure. In social situations, this laser-like dedication can make the Sigma appear enigmatic, even intimidating, because people sense the underlying intensity driving him. Ordinary men, accustomed to spreading their energy thin across social media, casual hobbies, and superficial pursuits, can't help but feel a mix of admiration and envy. They see the Sigma cutting through the chaos of modern life with remarkable precision, turning potential into results and vision into reality. In essence, the Sigma's lethal focus is not just a personal advantage, it is a form of power. It transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary accomplishment, proving that in a distracted world, the ability to concentrate is not just rare, it is revolutionary. Habit 5. Ghosting as a strategy. The Sigma male's relationship with time, energy, and personal boundaries is a defining aspect of his persona, and it's something that ordinary men often secretly envy. Unlike most people who feel obligated to explain themselves, seek approval, or fight to maintain every connection, the Sigma recognizes that his time and energy are finite and sacred. If someone disrespects him, whether by wasting his time, depleting his energy, or violating his boundaries, he doesn't hesitate. He withdraws instantly, and importantly, he does so without explanation or apology. This isn't arrogance, it's a deep understanding of cause and effect, the principle that not all engagements are worthy of his presence. Where others may argue, plead, or rationalize staying in toxic relationships, the Sigma embraces detachment, knowing that absence often communicates far more than words ever could. Historically, great thinkers and leaders have demonstrated similar detachment. Figures like Nikola Tesla or Bruce Lee understood the power of prioritizing focus over social obligation, allowing them to preserve mental energy for what truly mattered. This capacity for strategic withdrawal is why many perceive Sigma men as mysterious or untouchable. Silence, in this context, is not emptiness but a deliberate, powerful tool. While confrontation can escalate conflict, silence can establish respect and command authority in a way that words rarely achieve. Ordinary men, often conditioned to fear loss or rejection, cling to relationships, even ones that drain or harm them, because social validation feels safer than solitude. The Sigma, however, thrives in independence. He understands that true influence does not come from constant engagement, but from presence and intentionality. He does not fear disappearing from someone's life because he recognizes that his absence is a natural consequence of self-respect and discernment. This detachment is not passive, it is active mastery over one's environment, energy, and priorities. The ability to withdraw without guilt, explanation, or drama is a skill that requires both emotional intelligence and self-confidence. And it is precisely this skill that ignites both admiration and envy in others. In a world where people are tethered by fear, social obligation, or emotional insecurity, the Sigma male's refusal to compromise on his boundaries is a quiet yet profound declaration of freedom, a freedom that ordinary men often wish they could claim for themselves. Habit 6. Unshakable boundaries. In today's fast-paced, image-driven world, the ability to assert one's boundaries with unwavering clarity is a rare and powerful skill. The man who isn't swayed by flattery, status, or social pressure exemplifies a kind of quiet strength that many aspire to, but few truly achieve. When he says no, it's not a hesitant refusal or a polite suggestion. It is absolute, final, and resolute. This firmness doesn't come from arrogance or isolation. It comes from a deep understanding of self-worth and personal values. Psychological research on assertiveness highlights that individuals who maintain firm boundaries tend to experience higher levels of self-respect, reduced stress, and better interpersonal relationships because they communicate honestly and avoid the resentment that arises from saying yes when they truly mean no. Unlike the majority who bend to gain approval or avoid conflict, he operates from a place of authenticity, not performance. His boundaries are not rigid walls meant to shut people out, but gates he opens and closes with intentionality, allowing only what aligns with his principles and rejecting what doesn't. This precision reflects emotional intelligence as he navigates complex social dynamics without losing himself in the process. Neuroscience even suggests that people who enforce their boundaries experience greater mental clarity and emotional resilience, as they are less likely to be drained by external pressures or manipulated by others' agendas. Observers often envy this trait because it represents freedom, the freedom to act according to one's values, the freedom to prioritize one's own well-being, and the freedom to interact with the world on one's own terms. In a society where so many chase validation and approval, the ability to remain unshaken is magnetic and commanding without being domineering. He inspires respect, not through intimidation, but through the quiet, unwavering demonstration of self-control and integrity. In essence, his firmness is a blueprint for anyone seeking balance between compassion and self-preservation. It is proof that true strength lies not in dominance or aggression, but in the ability to decide decisively, act consistently, and honor one's own standards above the sway of fleeting external forces. This is a skill, a mindset, and a lifestyle that transforms interactions, relationships, and ultimately the trajectory of one's life. Habit 7. Skill mastery. The Sigma male's approach to life is fundamentally different from the average man's. While many focus on appearances, accolades, or the approval of others, the Sigma invests in true mastery, a quiet, relentless dedication to becoming exceptional in his chosen fields. This isn't about showing off or collecting trophies. It's about developing skills and knowledge to such a degree that competence itself becomes undeniable. Whether it's in business, he studies market trends, psychology, and negotiation tactics to consistently make strategic moves. In combat, he hones reflexes, awareness, and discipline, often training in multiple disciplines to maintain adaptability. In creativity, he experiments, practices, and learns from failures until his work carries a signature of excellence. In strategy, he observes, calculates, and anticipates outcomes with precision. Ordinary men, on the other hand, often spend more energy performing than preparing. They chase visibility, recognition, or immediate results, but lack the depth of skill or insight to back it up. The Sigma's mastery is like a slow-burning engine, quiet, powerful, and inexorably effective, while the average man's efforts resemble fireworks, flashy, temporary, and largely superficial. Historical examples abound. Leonardo da Vinci spent years sketching, experimenting, and studying anatomy long before the world recognized his genius. Similarly, in modern business, innovators like Elon Musk quietly immerse themselves in learning engineering, physics, and business strategy before their breakthroughs become headline news. What makes the Sigma enviable is not arrogance or aggression, but a magnetic combination of competence, self-discipline, and foresight. People sense it instinctively, often feeling inferior because the Sigma has spent decades cultivating skills and knowledge that can't be faked, while the rest are left chasing applause for efforts that rarely translate into true mastery. This dynamic underscores a timeless principle. Preparation outweighs performance, and mastery always commands respect, whether it is loudly acknowledged or quietly observed. Habit 8, freedom over recognition. Perhaps the most envied habit of a Sigma male is his unshakable devotion to freedom over validation. While most men seek acknowledgement, applause, and approval from their peers or society, the Sigma walks a different path, one guided by self-reliance and inner conviction rather than external recognition. He is the man who would rather live unnoticed yet fully autonomous than occupy the spotlight, but remain bound by expectations, social norms, or obligations he never chose. This preference for autonomy doesn't make him antisocial, it makes him discerning. He engages with others, yet he does so on his terms, and this independence creates a magnetic aura that others instinctively notice and secretly envy. Psychologists have noted that individuals who prioritize intrinsic rewards over extrinsic validation often exhibit higher resilience, creativity, and satisfaction in life because they are not constantly tethered to fluctuating opinions or societal pressures. This independence allows the Sigma male to pursue interests, ideas, and passions that might appear unconventional, risky, or misunderstood, yet he is unbothered by judgment. It unnerves men who secretly crave applause, for it reminds them of the invisible chains they carry, the need to perform, to impress, to belong. In contrast, the Sigma's life, though quieter, is unshackled and profound. He embodies the paradox of being both present and detached, influential yet untouched by the desire for recognition. The freedom he cultivates is not simply the absence of constraint, but the presence of self-mastery, a mastery that fascinates and intimidates, that draws admiration even from those who cannot quite replicate it. In a world obsessed with visibility, the Sigma male proves that true power lies in the liberty to exist authentically, unseen and unconstrained. What sets the Sigma male apart isn't flashy wealth or charm, it's a rare inner discipline and self-mastery. Operating outside societal norms, he remains detached, yet focused, unaffected by approval, criticism, or expectation. This enigmatic freedom, coupled with unwavering purpose, makes him both admirable and enviable, quietly commanding respect without seeking it. He doesn't chase, he doesn't explain, he simply sets the boundary and watches what crosses it. In a hyper-connected world obsessed with attention and approval, the Sigma male is an enigma. You won't find him posting thirst traps or obsessing over replies. He operates in silence, moves with intention, and holds an internal compass that doesn't sway with trends or validation. This is precisely what makes him magnetic. Psychologically, boundaries are a form of self-respect, and the Sigma male has mastered this art. He doesn't set boundaries to manipulate, he sets them to protect his peace. Modern psychology supports that clear personal boundaries promote mental well-being, emotional independence, and healthy relationships. The Sigma male doesn't just understand this, he embodies it. When he withdraws, it's not a power play, it's a calibration of energy. He knows his value and doesn't hand it out like flyers on a street corner. This restraint, this rare blend of emotional discipline and mystery, creates a gravitational pull. Women feel it, not because he overwhelms them with attention, but because he doesn't. In an age where oversharing is the norm, his quiet control feels like an oasis. He's not cold, he's composed. He's not detached, he's deliberate. And the moment someone tries to cross a line, whether it's disrespect, manipulation, or chaos, he doesn't react with drama. He simply exits. That's power. Not the kind you flaunt, but the kind you feel. His boundaries are not walls to keep others out, but filters to let the right people in. And that subtle distinction is everything. Women don't chase Sigma males because they're emotionally unavailable. They're drawn to them because they're emotionally sovereign. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to disturb. In a noisy world, the Sigma male's silence speaks louder than 1,000 words. And once you've heard it, you never forget the sound. Boundary 1. Access is earned, not given. He doesn't respond to every call, every text, or every emotional plea for attention, and that silence, far from being a cold shoulder, speaks volumes. This isn't about arrogance or playing hard to get. It's about establishing psychological boundaries that communicate value. A Sigma male's time is guarded like a rare currency, and his energy isn't dispensed just because someone demands it. This kind of restraint sends a powerful, often subconscious message to a woman. In psychology, this ties closely with the scarcity principle, a cognitive bias where we tend to assign more value to things that are less available. When he doesn't instantly respond or react, it doesn't convey disinterest. It builds mystery and raises his perceived worth. Women instinctively pick up on this. His absence creates space for desire to grow and for curiosity to intensify. She begins to wonder what he's doing, who he's with, and why he's not instantly available like others might be. And in that wondering, attraction brews. Evolutionary psychology also plays a role here. Throughout history, individuals who exuded self-sufficiency and control have been viewed as high status, traits that signal strength, stability, and security. By not making her the center of his universe, he's subtly showing that he doesn't her to feel complete. And paradoxically, that independence makes her want to be a part of his world even more. It's a dynamic that reverses the chase. Instead of begging for attention, he sets the tone, and she leans in. His presence becomes something to earn, not assume, and that shift is magnetic. In a world addicted to instant responses and constant digital noise, the Sigma male's restraint is like a breath of fresh air, cool, controlled, and unmistakably attractive. His silence is not absence, it's a boundary, and boundaries, when held with confidence, don't repel, they captivate. Boundary 2, he doesn't enter emotional chaos. Drama, manipulation, and emotional roller coasters, these are the weapons often used in the battlefield of emotional control. But the Sigma male doesn't engage. He sees them clearly, names them for what they are, and steps around them like a man walking through a minefield, careful not to trigger an explosion. Unlike most men who might take the bait and get drawn into endless debates, toxic confrontations, or gaslighting spirals, the Sigma operates on an entirely different frequency. His response is not rage, retaliation, or justification. It's absence. His boundary is not enforced through shouting or ultimatums. It's enforced through silence. This is not avoidance. It's strategic disengagement. Psychology calls this a gray rock technique, used by emotionally intelligent individuals to remain unreactive in the face of manipulation. When someone thrives on attention and chaos, the most effective weapon against them is indifference. The Sigma knows this instinctively. His silence is louder than words. It creates space for truth to echo. His absence is not a retreat, it is a statement, one that says, "Wait, I do not entertain dysfunction." For women accustomed to reactive partners, this silence is deafening. It confronts them with their own behavior. It removes the drama supply chain. And in that vacuum, the Sigma's exit stings more than any heated argument ever could. Neuroscience backs this up. When emotional stimuli are removed abruptly, the brain experiences a kind of withdrawal. It's not the closure she expected, it's the mirror she never wanted to look into. The Sigma male doesn't burn bridges. He simply crosses them quietly, with dignity, and doesn't look back. His absence becomes presence. His silence becomes a message. And in that moment, she doesn't just lose the argument, she loses access. That's what makes the Sigma's boundaries so powerful. They're not written in words, but in actions, not declared, but demonstrated, and once they're enforced, they leave no room for negotiation. Boundary 3, he does not abandon his mission. She might want more time, more commitment, more compromise. But the Sigma male operates on a different frequency, one that prioritizes purpose over pleasure and mission over momentary desire. This isn't about arrogance or emotional detachment, it's about living in alignment with one's inner compass. The Sigma male is deeply focused on his goals, whether they involve building a business, mastering a craft, or transforming his body and mind. Psychology backs this up. Studies in evolutionary biology show that women are often attracted to men with clear ambition and purpose. It signals stability, leadership, and confidence, qualities that hint at long-term survivability and success. When a man is unshakably focused, it creates a gravitational pull that doesn't just command attention, it earns respect. A Sigma doesn't ask for validation. His discipline speaks for itself. And in a world full of men eager to please, his refusal to compromise on his path sets him apart. This doesn't mean he lacks the ability to love or commit, but his boundaries are firm. He will not water himself down to fit into a relationship that doesn't respect his drive. In fact, his restraint is what makes him magnetic. Women may initially feel frustrated by his emotional distance or the way he disappears into his passions, but deep down, many admire the unwavering vision. They might not admit it openly, but it's that very discipline that separates him from the crowd. He becomes more than just a man. He becomes a force of nature. Like a mountain that doesn't move for storms, He remains rooted in purpose, and because he does not chase, he is often the one being pursued. That doesn't make him heartless, it makes him rare. In a society where people often sacrifice their dreams to maintain comfort, the Sigma male is a reminder that greatness demands solitude, focus, and sometimes even loss. His path isn't easy. It's filled with long nights, isolation, and choices others won't understand. But he knows. A man who abandons his mission for momentary affection will eventually lose both. So while she may ask for more of him, he remains committed first to the fire inside him. And ironically, it's that very commitment that draws others to his flame. Boundary 4, he refuses to be defined by her expectations. He won't become what she fantasizes. He won't act out a role. He shows up as he is, unfiltered, unapologetic. And that self-possession is intoxicating. What makes this so magnetic is the way it defies a deeply ingrained social pattern. In modern relationships, especially in the age of social media and hyper-personal branding, many people subconsciously perform. They mold themselves into idealized versions, curated for approval, validation, or admiration. But a Sigma male refuses to play that game. He doesn't twist himself into her fantasy or rewrite his personality to gain favor. His identity is not a script to be edited for someone else's expectations. Psychology refers to this as authenticity, a trait that's been linked to higher emotional intelligence, confidence, and even greater relationship satisfaction. And ironically, it's this refusal to conform that becomes so captivating. Why? Because humans are drawn to mystery and confidence. When a man doesn't seek approval, he communicates that his worth is innate, not dependent on outside affirmation. This creates a paradoxical effect. The more indifferent he is to impressing her, the more intriguing he becomes. It's what psychologists call the scarcity principle. People value what seems rare, and authenticity in today's world is rare. When she realizes she can't control the narrative, when he doesn't bend to her expectations, doesn't chase, doesn't over-explain or over-apologize, she begins to feel the gravitational pull of his grounded presence. It challenges her, maybe even frustrates her, but it also fascinates her. She may test him, try to provoke an emotional performance, or attempt to draw out reactions, but his centered calm remains. He doesn't retaliate or retreat. He simply exists with unshaken composure, like a mountain amid shifting winds, and that steadiness creates psychological safety, even in its unpredictability. She doesn't know what move he'll make next, but she knows he won't compromise who he is. This isn't arrogance, it's sovereignty. He belongs to himself first. That kind of man can't be manipulated with charm or controlled with flattery. And when a woman realizes she's dealing with someone who's not participating in the emotional economy of give to get, it disarms her. In a world obsessed with control, filters, and roles, the raw, unpolished truth of a man who refuses to pretend stands out like fire in the dark. He becomes unforgettable, not because he tried to be, but because he never tried at all. Boundary 5. He doesn't chase closure. If she pulls away, plays games, or tries to manipulate him by creating emotional distance, the Sigma male doesn't chase, complain, or fall into emotional traps. He simply watches in silence, offering no resistance to her departure. There's no pleading, no dramatic confrontation, and no desperate explanations, just a calm acceptance that radiates an unshakable self-respect. This response isn't born from indifference. It's a calculated understanding of value, boundaries, and emotional sovereignty. The Sigma male understands that love, to be genuine, must be freely given, not coerced or earned through emotional tug-of-war. And when someone begins to test those boundaries through manipulation or power games, his instinct is not to correct them, but to protect his peace. Women who are used to men chasing them when they play hard to get often find this lack of reaction jarring. They expect a pursuit, but instead, he offers them the unexpected, complete freedom to walk away. This disarming silence often becomes louder than any words could be. Psychology tells us that people often crave what they can't control, and the Sigma male's refusal to play along turns the table. In fact, this is rooted in the psychological principle of reactance, where people become more attracted to what seems unavailable or emotionally elusive. But the Sigma male isn't trying to be elusive. He simply lives by an inner code that says, if you don't value me, you don't get access to me. That kind of boundary setting is rare, especially in a world filled with validation-seeking behavior. It's not about arrogance, it's about emotional discipline and self-worth. His silence, his stillness, his willingness to let go with grace, it becomes haunting. Because long after the moment passes, she remembers it. She replays the way he didn't fight, didn't beg and didn't plead. And that memory lingers. It challenges her idea of power in relationships. This is where many women realize he's not like the rest. He's different. He's not interested in winning someone who disrespects his energy. He doesn't fear loss, he fears self-betrayal, and when someone lives with that level of inner strength, they become unforgettable. Not because of what they said, but because of what they refuse to tolerate. Boundary 6. He keeps his world private. He doesn't share his next move. His ambitions, his routines, his internal life, it's not for everyone. He moves in silence, and that mystery is irresistible. A woman who tries to figure him out finds herself intrigued, invested, and chasing clarity she may never get. This isn't accidental, it's the natural result of a man who has mastered self-containment. In a world obsessed with broadcasting every thought, every meal, and every plan on social media, the Sigma male chooses silence. Not because he's hiding something, but because he knows that real power lies in unpredictability. Psychology calls this the appeal of the unknown. Studies have shown that uncertainty can increase attraction. When someone is hard to read, the brain fixates on trying to decode them, creating a loop of mental investment. This is why silence can often speak louder than word. For a Sigma male, silence is not passive, it's strategic. It allows him to observe, to listen, and to calculate while others reveal their hand too early. He knows that when you let people speak, they show you who they are. And when you stay quiet, they begin to project onto you, filling in the blanks with fascination, fear, or admiration. To women, this unreadable nature becomes intoxicating. They aren't handed a pre-written script of his life. Instead, they're handed a puzzle, one they feel compelled to solve. Yet no matter how close they get, the Sigma keeps something to himself. He's not emotionally unavailable. He's selectively available. His vulnerability isn't for public display, but for those rare few who earn his trust. This elevates his value, not because he plays games, but because he's not driven by validation. His focus is internal. He's working on things, building his future, refining his mind, pursuing a mission. And because he doesn't advertise it, his every move becomes more powerful, more intentional. Like a chess master planning 6 steps ahead, his quiet confidence makes others lean in. Women don't just want to know what he's doing, they want to know what he's thinking. And that's where the power lies. Mystery isn't about manipulation. It's about having something sacred within you that not everyone gets access to. That kind of man doesn't just attract attention, he commands it without even trying. Boundary 7. He demands respect, not worship. He doesn't need flattery or constant praise. Compliments don't move him, truth does. But make no mistake, he notices disrespect immediately and he has no interest in entertaining it. You won't see him argue, beg, or raise his voice. His power lies in his silence and his detachment. The moment a subtle jab is thrown, a manipulative comment is made, or a dose of passive aggression slips into the conversation, he doesn't emotionally react. He physically distances himself. This isn't avoidance, it's a deliberate recalibration. In psychology, this is often referred to as strategic withdrawal, a technique used by emotionally intelligent individuals who refuse to enable toxic behavior. Sigma males, by their very nature, understand the laws of social energy. They know that tolerating disrespect even once sets a precedent, so they draw a hard line. Respect is not negotiable. This immediate disengagement sends a silent but powerful message. It rewires the entire dynamic between him and the other person. Suddenly, the manipulator is disarmed, the game falls flat, and the balance of power shifts. This isn't about ego, it's about boundaries. Sociologists have observed that individuals who maintain strong personal boundaries are often more respected, even by those who initially try to test them. This is what makes Sigma males so different. They don't seek control over others, but they maintain complete control over themselves. That's intimidating to those who rely on emotional tactics to manipulate. He doesn't give warnings or second chances for low-key disrespect. His retreat is not a punishment, it's a statement. And when he steps back, others are forced to step up or step aside. In a world obsessed with validation and people-pleasing, his refusal to compromise self-respect is revolutionary. It teaches people without a word that access to his presence is a privilege, not a right. And that privilege can be revoked the moment someone believes respect is optional. So, if you ever wonder why he suddenly goes quiet or disappears, it's not confusion, it's clarity. He's already made a decision. Boundary 8, he will walk alone without hesitation. If the relationship starts to cost him his peace, identity, or direction, he leaves. No announcement, no meltdown, just distance. Because the Sigma male understands something most people overlook. Peace is not a luxury, it's a non-negotiable. He knows that once a relationship begins to compromise his inner stability, it's no longer love, it's emotional debt. There's no dramatic exit, no need to explain. He simply reclaims his solitude like a warrior returning to sacred ground. Psychology backs this up. Men who are secure in solitude tend to have stronger self-concepts and healthier boundaries. The Sigma thrives alone, not because he's antisocial, but because he understands the power in detachment. When most are scrambling for validation, he's refueling in silence. And this makes him dangerously grounded. While others fear being alone and attach their worth to external relationships, the Sigma turns solitude into strength. This self-reliance makes him unforgettable. People may not understand his silence, but they'll never forget how it felt when he left. That distance? It's not coldness, it's clarity. And in that clarity, the Sigma male becomes more than just a man. He becomes a symbol of what it means to never compromise your core for temporary company. He isn't antisocial, he's social, an important distinction rooted in psychology. Sigma males aren't withdrawn or aloof because they dislike people, they simply value depth over noise. In social settings, the Sigma observes before acting, analyzing human behavior like a scientist watching patterns unfold. While alpha males dominate the spotlight and beta males seek approval, the Sigma walks an independent path, thriving in solitude but never isolated. His friendships are earned, not given, and his romantic interests are built on consistency, not charm. Neurologically, this selectiveness is tied to higher sensitivity in the brain's mirror neuron system. He picks up on subtle cues, making it easy for him to spot manipulation or performative behavior. When a Sigma disappears, it's rarely drama. It's data, a measured decision to protect his peace. This discipline is magnetic. Women remember him because of his silence, his standards, his calm detachment. The Sigma male doesn't chase. He attracts by becoming the rarest presence in the room. He transforms boundaries into an energy field, drawing in those who resonate with truth and pushing away the superficial. And while his path is quiet, its impact echoes. You don't forget a Sigma. You realized too late you were in the presence of power. He didn't yell, he didn't fight, he just walked away. And that's what terrified them the most. Not the noise of confrontation, but the silence of absolute self-control. A man who disappears without a word, yet leaves an impact louder than a scream. This is the invisible presence of the Sigma male. Unlike the alpha, who commands through charisma, or the beta, who seeks approval, the Sigma operates outside the social hierarchy altogether. He doesn't need to prove himself because his identity isn't tied to external validation. He exists on his own terms, and that alone disrupts the fragile dynamics of any room he enters or exits. People feel the shift, though they may not understand it. His energy is calm but potent, like still water hiding deep currents. He listens more than he speaks, and that unnerves those who rely on noise to feel important. Sigma males aren't antisocial, they're selectively social. They observe, they analyze, they listen to silence the way others chase applause. And it's this mysterious restraint that unsettles others, not aggression, but ambiguity. In a world obsessed with broadcasting every thought and chasing constant attention, a man who simply becomes the loudest whisper in the room. Psychology studies even suggest that individuals who show emotional control, especially in high-pressure social situations, are perceived as more powerful and self-assured. The Sigma embodies this effortlessly. He's unpredictable, unreachable, and most of all, unbothered. His detachment isn't apathy, it's independence. He doesn't need them, he doesn't need anyone. And that quiet autonomy, it shakes people. Not because he's trying to dominate, but because he reminds them of their own dependence on others for identity. This isn't a story of dominance, it's a story of difference. A kind of difference that reflects back what others don't want to see. Their own insecurities. That's the true reason they fear the Sigma male. Not because of what he does, but because of what he doesn't need to do. Let's begin. Number 1. He's uncomfortably silent. Most people fear silence, not because it's empty, but because it is loud in a way that words are not. In silence, all the noise we use to distract ourselves fades, and what remains is truth. That's precisely why most people avoid it, but not the Sigma male. He thrives in silence. Unlike others who scramble to fill every pause with chatter, jokes, or nervous laughter, the Sigma rests calmly in the stillness. His presence doesn't demand attention, yet it commands it. While others interpret silence as awkward or uncomfortable, the Sigma sees it as a space where masks drop, pretenses unravel, and real identities are exposed. Scientifically, studies in psychology show that silence activates deeper brain processing, prompting introspection and emotional awareness. In the presence of a Sigma male's unwavering quiet, people unconsciously begin to hear the voices within themselves, their doubts, insecurities, and inconsistencies. This introspective discomfort isn't something they're used to, and that's why it unnerves them. When they see that he won't play their social games, won't scramble to validate them, or react to provocation, it exposes just how much they rely on others' reactions to feel in control. A Sigma's silence isn't passive, it's powerful. He watches, listens, and waits, all without revealing his hand. This forces others to reflect, often for the first time, on who they are without applause or performance. In a world obsessed with likes, noise, and instant responses, his refusal to engage in ego-driven interactions comes off as mysterious, even threatening. What's more, his calm and measured gaze makes people feel truly seen, not just the polished version they present, but the raw, unfiltered version they hide. And that is terrifying for most. Because to be seen is to be vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, people confront the truth they've long suppressed. The Sigma male doesn't have to expose them. They unravel themselves. It's not power through dominance, it's influence through presence. That silent presence, rich with psychological depth and unspoken insight, is the mirror many fear to face. Number 2, he operates with surgical detachment. The Sigma male doesn't panic, he assesses. In a world where people often react impulsively to chaos, betrayal, or emotional turmoil, the Sigma operates like a silent tactician. While others yell, flail, or spiral into panic, he watches, calculates, moves with precision. He's not heartless, he's strategic. Think of a sniper versus a foot soldier. The soldier runs into battle, reactive and exposed. The sniper waits, studies, then acts with one clean, deliberate shot. That's the Sigma's emotional approach. There's no wasted energy, no unnecessary drama, and no outbursts that cloud judgment. He knows that in emotional warfare, the one who stays calm holds the power. And that calm isn't accidental, it's trained. Studies in psychology show that people who develop high emotional intelligence, EQ, have greater control over their reactions, which leads to better decision-making and stronger leadership. The Sigma has, consciously or not, developed this trait through experience, solitude, and deep introspection. He's walked through emotional fire before and learned not to catch flame. To the average person who's still ruled by impulse or ego, this kind of composure feels eerie, even robotic. It's unsettling to witness someone who doesn't flinch when everything's falling apart. But that's because most people have never mastered their own emotional chaos. They project their internal instability onto others and feel threatened by someone who has what they lack: discipline. It's not that the Sigma doesn't feel, it's that he doesn't let feelings dictate his actions. Like a martial artist who breathes slowly in the middle of a fight, his strength lies in restraint, not aggression. And that kind of inner mastery, that ability to remain grounded in a storm, is both rare and powerful. It's why people often misread the Sigma's detachment as coldness, when in truth it's a high form of self-regulation. This isn't apathy, it's alignment. In a noisy, emotional world, the Sigma's silence roars. Number 3, he walks away with no explanation, no fight, no drama, just silence. One day he's there, calm, observant, seemingly connected. The next he's gone, vanishing like smoke before anyone realizes they were breathing it in. This sudden disappearance isn't accidental, it's deliberate. It's the classic exit of a Sigma male. Unlike other personality types who may yell, argue, or seek closure, the Sigma male disengages with surgical precision. And that silence, that's what shakes people to their core. It leaves no explanation, no apology, no breadcrumb trail to follow, just a haunting absence that echoes louder than words ever could. Psychologically, this reaction stems from a fundamental trait of the Sigma male: emotional detachment paired with high self-worth. Sigmas don't stick around where respect is lacking or their energy is drained. They observe quietly, analyze deeply, and when they recognize they are being used, underestimated, or merely tolerated, they leave. No announcement, no performance. This type of behavior isn't about cruelty, it's about clarity. According to studies on introverted personalities and self-reliant individuals, those who fall into the lone wolf or Sigma category often value peace over validation and solitude over toxic connections. What really unsettles people is what this silence reveals. Suddenly, they're forced to confront uncomfortable truths. They were never the priority. They weren't appreciated, just accommodated. The Sigma male's silent exit acts like a mirror, reflecting the indifference they failed to see while he was still around. It's not that he stops caring, it's that he never pretended to care more than he did. People start to analyze every word, every look, hoping to extract a meaning that was never promised. But nothing comes, and that nothing becomes everything. What makes this departure sting even more is that Sigmas don't look back. They're not trying to teach anyone a lesson or win them over. Their silence isn't a tactic, it's a philosophy. They believe in preserving their energy, protecting their peace, and walking away when the cost of staying becomes too high. It's not cold-heartedness, it's emotional discipline. So when a Sigma disappears, it isn't just an exit, it's a revelation. And in the emptiness he leaves behind, others are finally forced to see the space they never truly filled. Number 4, he respects you, but won't fear you. People often mistake quietness for submission. Society is conditioned to think that the loudest voice in the room holds the most power, while the silent one is merely passive or timid. But this assumption collapses when it comes to the Sigma male. His silence isn't surrender, it's surveillance, it's strategic. While others are busy performing, he's observing. The Sigma sees what most overlook: the clenched jaw behind a fake smile, the hesitation in a handshake, and the sudden drop in someone's voice when they're hiding something. His brain is wired to read between the lines, decoding body language and micro-expressions that reveal people's true intentions. According to studies in psychology, over 90% of communication is nonverbal. That's where the Sigma thrives. He doesn't need to speak to assert power, he simply understands people too well to be fooled. So when manipulation enters the room, the Sigma doesn't shout or argue. He doesn't give the manipulator the satisfaction of a reaction. Instead, he detaches, swiftly, silently, and completely. This is where his power becomes truly unnerving. The manipulator, who relies on emotional leverage and drama, finds themselves without a handle to grab onto. There's no emotional outburst to exploit, no weakness to play off. The Sigma offers nothing but absence, no final confrontation, no second chances, just a vanishing act that stings deeper than words ever could. This leaves manipulators in a spiral. Their greatest weapon, control, no longer works. And without that, they're powerless. This cold disconnection triggers fear, because it reveals something terrifying. The Sigma cannot be controlled. He doesn't need validation, doesn't fear solitude, and certainly doesn't rely on toxic attachments to feel worthy. That kind of detachment is rare and dangerous to those who feed on emotional chaos. It's a psychological shutdown that's deeply unsettling to manipulators because it exposes their own fragility. And the silence, that's not retreat. It's a message. So the next time someone tries to play games with a Sigma, they won't hear a warning. They'll only notice the silence and the empty space where he used to be. Number 5, he never competes for attention. Alphas roar, betas beg, Sigmas vanish, and it's that vanishing act, not loud, not dramatic, but clean and precise, that pulls more attention than any showy display. In a world obsessed with being seen, heard, and validated, the Sigma male's quiet retreat isn't weakness. It's strength in its rarest form. Unlike the alpha, who asserts dominance through control, or the beta, who seeks acceptance through submission, the Sigma doesn't engage in the social hierarchy at all. He steps outside of it. He doesn't raise his voice, he raises his standards. He walks away from anything that compromises his peace, his values, or his independence. And when he does, something strange happens. People who once ignored him start seeking his attention. Those who underestimated him try to win his approval. His absence creates a void that people feel, but can't quite explain. Psychologists call this the scarcity principle. When something or someone is less available, they're perceived as more valuable. The Sigma male embodies this principle naturally. He doesn't need to play hard to get. He's hard to get because he's already complete within himself. He doesn't perform to be liked. He exists on his terms. And ironically, that quiet detachment becomes magnetic, while others post, boast, and overexpose themselves trying to prove their worth. The Sigma stays silent, observing, refining, and evolving. This invisible power, this ability to disappear without fear, terrifies those who rely on constant validation. Because the Sigma has never chased attention, and yet attention seems to chase him. His mystery makes people curious. His silence makes them listen harder. His independence makes them question their own need to belong. And in doing nothing, he shifts everything. It's not arrogance, it's not aloofness, it's discipline, it's self-knowledge. The Sigma male moves like gravity, unseen but deeply felt. And while others exhaust themselves trying to shine, the Sigma understands that the brightest stars are the ones farthest from the noise. Number 6, he grows in the shadows. While others post every gym session, every side hustle, and every ounce of ambition on social media, the Sigma male builds in silence. He understands a fundamental truth. Real transformation doesn't need applause, it needs consistency. While the crowd seeks validation through likes and comments, he finds power in discipline, solitude, and mastery. Each day he chips away at his goals, refining skills, expanding his mindset, and developing discipline most people only talk about. You won't hear about his hustle on day one. You won't even see signs of progress for weeks or months. But then, he's fluent in a new language, a task most abandon halfway. He's leading a complex project no one even knew he was preparing for. The man you overlooked is the one everyone wants to learn from. This stealth evolution isn't accidental, it's strategic. Neuroscience supports this approach. Studies show that announcing your goals prematurely can trick your brain into feeling you've already achieved them, reducing the drive to actually follow through. The Sigma male bypasses that trap. He knows that real achievement is rooted in process, not performance. He doesn't seek permission to grow, and he doesn't crave praise for doing so. This unsettles others, especially those who've spent years about change but haven't moved an inch. His evolution exposes their stagnation. While they were busy debating plans, he was executing his. That quiet commitment makes him untouchable, not because he brags, but because he becomes undeniable. People fear what they cannot control or predict, and his rise, unannounced, uninvited, and unstoppable, breaks their illusion of superiority. There's something unnerving about someone who grows beyond your expectations without ever asking for your approval, and that's the power of the Sigma male. He transforms in private, appears in public evolved, and walks away from mediocrity without looking back. His discipline is his declaration, his success is his statement. And to those still stuck in the loop of talk without action, his mere existence becomes a silent challenge: evolve or be left behind. Number 7, he's immune to shame. Call him weird, call him cold, call him anything you want. He won't flinch, because the Sigma male has already done what most people never dare to do. He has faced himself. That long, hard stare in the mirror, he didn't blink. He confronted the darkness, the flaws, the regrets, and the scars he once tried to bury. While society trains men to suppress, to hide, and to pretend, the Sigma chose solitude over performance. He embraced the discomfort of self-reflection. Psychologically speaking, this kind of radical self-acceptance is rare. According to Carl Jung, the shadow self, those unwanted traits and past mistakes, is something most people deny, projecting it onto others. But the Sigma doesn't project, he integrates. He makes peace with the parts of himself that others are still ashamed of. That's why attempts to shame him or use his past as a weapon fall flat. He's not hiding skeletons in the closet, he's danced with them. And that unnerves people, because control relies on fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, and fear of being alone. But the Sigma doesn't fear isolation. In fact, he thrives in it. Studies in behavioral psychology have shown that people who are comfortable with solitude tend to have stronger emotional regulation, higher self-awareness, and greater autonomy. These are not just character traits, they're superpowers in a world obsessed with conformity. So when someone tries to push him into a box, mold him, guilt trip him, or manipulate him emotionally, it doesn't work. Why? Because you can't control a man who doesn't need your approval. That's what makes the Sigma unpredictable and intimidating. He's detached, but not because he's numb, because he's disciplined. He's cold, but only to the nonsense. Weird? Sure, if thinking for yourself is weird. He walks away from drama without announcing it. He leaves toxic environments without a breakdown. And he rises from failure without fanfare. That quiet strength, that's what scares people. He doesn't need to be loud, flashy, or constantly seen to prove his worth. And because he has nothing to hide and nothing to prove, the world can throw its worst at him. And he'll still walk forward, unshaken, unmoved, and completely free. Number 8, he leaves a legacy, not a trail. The Sigma male isn't concerned with being remembered, but ironically, that's exactly why he is. He doesn't need applause or attention, nor does he hunger for recognition or titles. Unlike those who clamor for validation, the Sigma operates in silence, like a shadow with purpose. His movements are intentional. He doesn't broadcast his plans or trumpet his success. He lets his results do the talking. When he enters a room, he doesn't dominate it with volume, but with presence, a quiet energy that unsettles the insecure and inspires the observant. And when he leaves, it's as if something intangible has shifted. People talk about him more in his absence than they did in his presence, not because he forced them to notice, but because they couldn't help but feel him. Psychologically, this resonates with the concept of a phenomenon where those who observe more than they speak often become the most impactful. Research even shows that individuals who act with deliberate calmness and restraint are often perceived as more competent and mysterious, two traits that linger in people's minds long after they're gone. The Sigma male doesn't seek attention, but his discipline, boundaries, and ability to walk alone draw it anyway. In many ways, his detachment is his power. He can remove himself from environments that no longer serve him without bitterness, leaving behind not bitterness or drama, but curiosity, respect, and in some cases, obsession. He challenges the narrative that you have to be loud to be seen. Instead, he rewrites it with every step, showing that quiet confidence is the rarest and most magnetic force of all. That's why the Sigma is remembered, not because he demanded to be, but because his existence quietly demanded reflection. People don't just remember what he said, they remember how he made them feel, even when he said nothing at all. His impact echoes in their minds like footsteps in an empty hall, long after he's walked away. The Sigma male doesn't aim to frighten, he simply exists on his own terms. In a world that thrives on validation, applause, and endless noise, his quiet confidence becomes a disruption to the norm. He doesn't conform, chase trends, or beg for attention, and that non-conformity is what unsettles people the most. Society often rewards extroversion and compliance, but the Sigma male rejects the idea that he must play a part to be accepted. This isn't rebellion, it's authenticity. He values solitude over spectacle, depth over drama, and purpose over popularity. And because he's not trying to impress anyone, his presence is often more powerful than words. Psychologists say those who are least reactive often hold the most control, and Sigma males master this. Their silence speaks volumes. Invisibility becomes influence. So stay curious, be unseen, be unfazed, and in doing so, become unforgettable in a world that never saw you coming. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. The very energy that surrounds him speaks louder than words ever could. When a Sigma male walks into a room, there's a sudden shift, like the atmosphere tightens, like everyone becomes subtly aware of his presence. He isn't seeking attention, dominance, or approval. In fact, he avoids it. But paradoxically, this only draws more eyes to him. His silence isn't empty, it carries a weight most can't understand. It's the kind of silence that makes people wonder what he's thinking, what he knows, and why they feel slightly unsettled in his presence. This isn't your typical charisma, the charming, talkative energy that pulls people in. This is something colder, deeper, and more instinctive. Psychology refers to it as silent authority, a powerful phenomenon where someone exerts influence without exertion, simply through their aura, body language, and emotional detachment. Sigma males embody this naturally. They observe more than they speak. They think before they act. And their emotional independence makes them immune to the chaos of social drama. People don't know how to categorize them. They're not alphas trying to lead, not betas trying to please. They're outsiders by choice, strategists by nature, and calm in a way that feels almost alien. It's no surprise that this unnerves others. Studies on nonverbal dominance and perceived threat suggest that people can feel uncomfortable when they encounter someone whose presence contradicts social norms, especially someone who doesn't try to fit in or compete. And yet, that same discomfort is laced with fascination. Some admire his mystery, some envy his control, others despise him, though they can't articulate why. The Sigma doesn't chase respect. He doesn't need to. His self-reliance and psychological depth make him impossible to ignore. So today we journey into his world, to uncover the 8 spine-chilling behaviors that define him, disturb others, and remind us that sometimes the loudest power is the quietest man in the room. Welcome to Brain Boosters, where we decode the psychology of the quiet disruptor. Let's begin. Number 1, he cuts emotion like a blade. Most men react, Sigmas calculate. That's the difference between a wildfire and a controlled burn. One rages out of control, the other is strategic, precise, and necessary. When provoked, the Sigma male doesn't flare up in rage or spiral into emotional theatrics. He studies, he processes. His mind shifts into analytical mode, not fight or flight, because for the Sigma, anger is inefficient. It clouds judgment and wastes energy. Panic, even worse. It's messy, unpredictable, and often exploited by others. Emotion to the Sigma is a vulnerability, an exposed wire that people can tamper with. So he learns early to contain it, not suppress it blindly, but manage it with razor-sharp control. Like a dam holding back a flood, his calm demeanor keeps him watertight, sealed against manipulation and chaos. And this, ironically, makes him dangerous in the eyes of those who thrive on emotional reactions. Manipulators and drama addicts feed on attention, on the tug-of-war of emotional escalation. They're used to pushback, loud objections, drawn-out arguments. But the Sigma gives them none of it. He denies them the battle. He doesn't yell, he doesn't plead, he doesn't even argue. Instead, he might disappear without warning, ghosting toxicity without guilt. Or worse, for those seeking validation, he ends the relationship or conflict with one calm, surgical decision. No drawn-out goodbyes, no need for closure, just a clean break, like cutting a cord that no longer serves him. This is where the real impact happens. Because while most people are accustomed to conflict leaving behind noise, a Sigma's silence echoes louder. His refusal to engage, to justify, to return, leaves scars. Not from violence or cruelty, but from the quiet void he creates. He doesn't seek revenge or make a scene. He simply moves on. And that can be more psychologically jarring than any shouting match. Studies in psychology have shown that emotional detachment, especially when unexpected, can be more unsettling than confrontation. It leaves the other party with unanswered questions, forced into self-reflection they didn't ask for. This is the Sigma's power, not in domination, but in unshakable control. While the world spins in drama and emotional chaos, the Sigma remains still, deliberate, and almost ghost-like in his movement. That makes him hard to manipulate, hard to decode, and even harder to forget. And that's precisely why his presence and absence leave a lasting mark. Number 2, he's immune to status games. While others measure their value in titles, followers, and fame, the Sigma male quietly walks away from it all, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment with deeper truths. In a world obsessed with recognition, he is a rare breed who finds no need to broadcast his worth. He could be wealthy beyond imagination, powerful beyond comprehension, yet he moves in silence. You won't find him chasing applause or scrambling for likes because his self-worth isn't constructed from external validation. It's built in silence, forged in the fire of solitude, and tested through trials of self-reliance. This is what makes him dangerous, because the very things that society uses to control, tempt, or manipulate others simply don't work on him. You can't lure a man with status when he's already content in isolation. You can't intimidate a man who's not afraid to lose you. Sigma males function outside the traditional hierarchy, not below it or above it, but completely off the grid. They are lone wolves who operate with surgical precision, not because they have something to prove, but because they have nothing to lose. Psychologically, this level of detachment is unsettling to those who are addicted to attention and approval. The Sigma's independence reflects a form of quiet rebellion, a rejection of superficial metrics in favor of internal mastery. Research in behavioral psychology even supports this trait. Studies show that those with high levels of intrinsic motivation tend to be more creative, resilient, and less susceptible to peer pressure. Sigma males embody that principle in full. They aren't antisocial, they're selectively social. They don't hate authority, they just don't need it, and they don't fear being alone, because they've turned solitude into a sanctuary. In the modern era, where digital noise drowns out authenticity, the Sigma male's refusal to play the popularity game is both radical and refreshing. He isn't unreachable, he's just not waiting for validation. You won't find him where everyone else is looking because he's already gone, deep into his purpose, unmoved by trends, untouched by manipulation. While others follow the spotlight, the Sigma is lighting his own fire in the dark. And that, more than anything, is what terrifies people, a man who is ungovernable, unshakable, and utterly free. Number 3, he withdraws without warning, no text, no message, just silence, and he's gone. To most, this sudden disappearance is baffling, what the world now calls ghosting. But for a Sigma male, it's not a game or manipulation tactic, it's preservation. In a world that constantly demands attention, reaction, and emotional labor, the Sigma male has mastered the art of withdrawal. When the energy around him becomes draining, when conversations grow artificial, and when social settings reek of pretense, he doesn't linger to argue or explain. He simply leaves. The Sigma's retreat is not cowardice, it's clarity. He knows that words rarely change those committed to misunderstanding him. He operates on a frequency of authenticity and self-containment, and when that frequency is disrupted, he doesn't seek to repair what's broken. He moves on to preserve what's whole within himself. Psychologically, this behavior ties into the Sigma's unique placement on the social hierarchy, outside of it entirely. Unlike alphas who dominate or betas who follow, Sigmas carve their own path, often preferring solitude over shallow interactions. Research in behavioral science suggests that introverted personalities with high self-awareness are more prone to setting firm emotional boundaries, often through avoidance or withdrawal. The Sigma male exemplifies this by creating invisible lines that, once crossed, signal an immediate disengagement. It's not impulsive, it's calculated. He's highly attuned to emotional shifts and can detect disingenuous behavior quickly. When that happens, the Sigma doesn't confront chaos. He simply chooses peace. This form of detachment often confuses others. People question his silence, misinterpret his distance as arrogance, or label his independence as antisocial behavior. But for the Sigma, understanding isn't the goal. Alignment is. And when that alignment breaks, when the connection becomes a drain rather than a source, he honors the fracture by letting it be final. There's a kind of brutal elegance in the way he disappears. Clean, quiet, complete. No bitterness, no blame, just a calculated withdrawal that leaves others wondering what happened while he walks forward unburdened. Because for the Sigma, the loudest statement he can make is often the one left unsaid. Number 4, he sees through social masks. While most men are easily dazzled by external attributes, beauty, charm, status, or wealth, the Sigma male plays a different game entirely. He isn't led by surface-level appeal or manipulated by what is shown to the world. Instead, he observes. He sees patterns in human behavior that others miss. He notices the micro-shifts in posture, the tension behind a fake smile, and the nervous glance that flickers for just a moment too long. Where others listen to words, the Sigma hears, the slight crack in a voice, the urgency behind a calm statement. He doesn't need someone to shout to understand intensity. Silence to him is a language richer than dialogue, filled with hesitation, fear, secrets, and intent. This ability to read people like a book without them ever realizing it is unsettling to many. Most are used to hiding behind charm or distractions, but none of that works on a Sigma. He's attuned to the subtle, the invisible, and the intuitive. According to studies in behavioral psychology and nonverbal communication, over 90% of human interaction is conveyed through body language, facial expression, and vocal tone, not actual words. The Sigma male, whether consciously or through natural disposition, has mastered this unspoken language. This is what makes him dangerous in the eyes of manipulators, liars, and pretenders. They can't deceive someone who sees through the mask before it's even fully worn. But here's the twist. He rarely confronts. There's no grand expose, no explosive call-out. He simply acts based on what he knows. He withdraws, avoids, or navigates around the game being played without ever announcing that he's aware of it. That quiet confidence, that internal knowing without the need for validation, unnerves people. In a world where many scream for attention or validation, the Sigma walks calmly, confidently, seeing through illusions. And that's what makes him so powerful. He's not interested in competing on the same field as everyone else. He's already 10 steps ahead, operating on an entirely different level. Those around him may never understand why they feel uneasy in his presence, but somewhere deep down they sense the truth. This man can see what they've worked so hard to conceal. And that awareness, not of facts, but of unspoken truths, is what makes the Sigma both mysterious and magnetic. Number 5, he respects without needing approval. He'll compliment the Alpha, he'll defend the Beta, but he will not kneel to either. That's the Sigma male in his purest form, an enigmatic, autonomous force who operates outside the conventional social hierarchy. Unlike alphas, who often crave dominance, or betas, who may seek approval, the Sigma male values sovereignty above status. He doesn't measure worth by rank, but by character. He may acknowledge an alpha's leadership skills or a beta's loyalty, but he won't submit to either's influence. His allegiance isn't to power or popularity, it's to principle. Respect, in the Sigma's world, is not something handed out like candy, nor is it extracted through fear or flattery. It's earned through authenticity, integrity, and consistency. And when a Sigma offers respect, it's not casual, it's significant. It means you've passed through his quiet internal filters and earned a place of honor in his mind. But beware, if you cross a line, violate his boundaries, or disrespect his core values, you won't get a lecture or a second chance. There will be no emotional explosion, no dramatic fallout, just silence. He'll vanish like smoke from a campfire, swift, cold, and final. This isn't a game of ego, it's a form of self-preservation. Studies in social psychology show that individuals who are highly self-reliant and introspective tend to withdraw rather than confront when trust is broken. That's the Sigma's natural response, not out of weakness, but out of strength. He knows his time, energy, and mental space are sacred, and he protects them fiercely. When he distances himself, it's not to punish, it's to maintain his peace. So if a Sigma walks away, don't mistake his silence for indecision. It's a loud, deliberate choice. He respects others, yes, but he respects himself more. And that's what makes him so rare in a world obsessed with validation and noise. He's not trying to impress you. He's not here to climb ladders or win popularity contests. He's here to live on his own terms, and that makes him both fascinating and formidable. So if a Sigma gives you his respect, cherish it. But if you lose it, don't expect a speech, just expect the echo of his absence. Number 6, he can walk away from anyone. Friend, boss, lover, even family. A Sigma male's boundaries apply across the board, and that's what makes him different. He doesn't walk away from people to make a statement, to be dramatic, or to punish someone with silence. No, he walks away to protect his peace, something he values more than popularity, approval, or tradition. While most people are conditioned to stick around and fix relationships because of history, obligation, or fear of being judged, the Sigma sees it differently. For him, loyalty isn't bought with time spent. It's earned through mutual respect, honesty, and integrity. If that foundation begins to crack, he doesn't waste energy patching a sinking ship. Instead, he quietly steps back. No explanations, no scenes, just distance. Psychologists refer to this as detachment with awareness, the ability to remain emotionally centered while stepping back from unhealthy dynamics. Sigma males have mastered this. They don't thrive on chaos, they retreat from it. It's not that they don't feel pain or care about others. It's that they've learned how to care without sacrificing themselves. When a relationship, whether personal or professional, becomes toxic, they don't argue or beg for respect. They remove themselves. And because this behavior challenges traditional emotional expectations, society often mislabels it as coldness, arrogance, or even narcissism. But in reality, it's emotional discipline rooted in self-preservation. In the animal kingdom, lone wolves are often misunderstood in the same way. They're not banished from the pack. They choose solitude for survival. Sigma males operate on the same principle. They're not antisocial, they're selectively social. Their departure isn't rejection, it's redirection. They understand that not everyone deserves access to their energy. This mindset can be intimidating, especially to those who thrive on codependence or manipulation. But to the Sigma, walking away isn't weakness, it's strength. It's clarity. It's choosing growth over guilt. So when he walks away from a friend, a boss, a lover, even family, it's not to hurt, it's to heal. The world might call that cold, but the Sigma, he calls it survival. And in a society that often rewards conformity and emotional chaos, survival requires a powerful combination of inner peace, quiet strength, and unapologetic self-respect. Number 7, he disarms women without trying. He doesn't chase, he doesn't flirt, he just exists. And somehow that's enough to spark curiosity, admiration, and even desire. The Sigma male operates on a frequency that doesn't beg for attention, but commands it through quiet presence. In a world saturated with performative masculinity, loud bravado, constant validation seeking, and overused pickup tactics, the Sigma male's silence becomes his loudest trait. Psychologists refer to this as non-reactive confidence, a trait linked to emotional intelligence and high self-awareness. His eye contact doesn't dart around nervously, it lingers just long enough to be felt, not forced. His words aren't thrown out like darts in a bar. They're chosen with surgical precision, leaving a lasting impression. And ironically, it's his absence that tends to make the most noise. That's because when someone isn't easily accessible, our brains activate what's called the Zeigarnik effect. We fixate more on the unfinished, the unanswered, and the unknown. This psychological mystery fuels magnetism. He's not playing games or manipulating emotions. What people perceive as seduction is actually discipline, power through restraint. By refusing to chase or conform, the Sigma male reminds others that self-respect is the highest form of attraction. His life doesn't orbit around anyone's validation. It revolves around his mission, his solitude, and his sense of purpose. And that gravitational pull, it's the natural consequence of a man who doesn't try to be magnetic. He just is. In a world where everyone is shouting, his silence becomes the most irresistible sound in the room. Number 8, he forces others to confront themselves. The deepest reason people fear him isn't because he's loud, aggressive, or dominant. It's because he is a mirror that reflects everything they are not. His discipline quietly reveals their procrastination and lack of self-control. When he maintains calm under pressure, it makes their internal chaos feel louder and more unstable. His self-reliance shines a harsh light on their dependency and constant need for validation, and perhaps most unsettling of all is his silence. In a world addicted to noise and distraction, his stillness acts like a spiritual vacuum, forcing others to confront the mental clutter they work so hard to avoid. Neurologically, the brain is wired to seek comfort in familiar behavior. When someone disrupts that norm, especially with stoic calm and quiet strength, it triggers discomfort and even resentment in others. He doesn't need to say a word to challenge someone's identity. He doesn't need to judge, condemn, or compare. He simply, and that unshakable presence is often more terrifying than any confrontation. It's not that he's threatening, he's just authentic. And in a world where masks are worn like armor, authenticity can be both magnetic and intimidating. It shakes foundations, rattles egos, and forces introspection. People fear him not for what he does, but for what he represents. The possibility that they too could be more, but aren't. And that realization, more than anything, can be unbearable. Becoming untouchable isn't about building walls, it's about refining your inner world until nothing external can shake it. A Sigma male isn't created by chance. He's shaped by pressure, like carbon turning into diamond. Every betrayal becomes a lesson. Every setback becomes fuel. Solitude becomes his training ground. While most chase validation, the Sigma retreats inward, mastering his thoughts, sharpening his intentions. Psychologically, this mirrors Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the journey of becoming one's true self.